Good evening, everyone, and welcome to week 4 of the 6th annual Unbound Book Festival here in Columbia, Missouri. My name is Gabe Freed, and I'm on the Unbound Programming Committee and its Director of Poetry Program. Tonight, we are thrilled to welcome Sojourner Ahabi and Lapita Ide Tucker, winner of the 2020 and 2021 Unbound Emerging Poet Award. We're so lucky to have these extraordinary poets with us this evening. I'll tell you a bit more about our readers and our Emerging Poet Award in just a moment. As you may know, the festival has always been completely free to attend, and this wouldn't be possible without the generosity of the hundreds and hundreds of people who've supported us financially over the years. On behalf of everyone who volunteers for Unbound and everyone who attends these events, we are so grateful to each and every one of you who has been kind enough to give. If you'd like to help us out, please go to the website, unboundbookfestival.com, and click on the donate button on the homepage. We're a registered nonprofit, and we are completely run by volunteers, so everything we receive goes directly into putting on these events. Thank you. Support comes too from the City of Columbia, specifically the Office of Cultural Affairs and the Convention and Visitors Bureau. KBIA and Como Magazine are our media sponsors. A full list of our sponsors and supporters is available on the website. Usually at this time, we thank our event sponsor, typically a local business or organization that sponsors the evening's program. Tonight is a bit different, however. The Unbound Emerging Poet Award is completely underwritten by a single individual, a wonderful person whose commitment to the festival and to supporting essential emerging poets is an act of extraordinary generosity to Unbound, to the awarded poets, who each receive a $1,000 honorarium, and to all of us gathered here at the festival this year. While this remarkable human, and they really are remarkable, prefers that we focus on the poets, and therefore to remain unnamed, we are thrilled to recognize them, even anonymously, for contributing so generously to Unbound. They have passed us only with selecting a poet who seems on the cusp of breaking through and whose work gives voice to important lives and experiences deserving of a broader audience. On behalf of Alex George, the festival director, and the rest of the programming committee, I want to thank this exceptional human for their involvement, spirit, and vision. Speaking of spirit and vision, it is now time for this evening's poetry event, and we'll begin tonight's event with Sojourner Ahabi. Sojourner is a poet and journalist who writes stories about African diaspora identities and the eternal question of home and belonging. Her poems have been published or are forthcoming in The Atlantic, the Academy of American Poets Poem a Day program, Muzzle magazine, For Harriet, Winter Tangerine Review, Apiary magazine, and elsewhere. In 2013, she served as a National Student Poet, the nation's highest honor for young poets presenting original work. Sojourner was invited to the White House by former First Lady Michelle Obama to receive her award. I think you can actually find a video of that on YouTube. A graduate of Stanford University, she is a recipient of a fellowship from MacDowell, which when I met her there over a year ago was still known as the MacDowell Colony, and where I heard her read from an astonishing poetry project about her namesake, Sojourner Truth. About her debut chapbook, which was published in 2017, Dinez Smith wrote, Sojourner Ahabi's reporting from the belly of the night is willed with black girl teeth, stunning portraits of stunning selves, and all the rage, rhythm, and holiness you can find in an Azalea Banks song. Her poems are rapid with the genius as these lyrics unfold lush and sturdy from Ahabi's versatile hand. It is such a pleasure to welcome to Unbound this evening the winner of the 2020 Unbound Emerging Poet Award, Sojourner Ehebi.
Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you all tonight. Thank you, Gabe, for that generous introduction. I'm going to begin with a poem for my grandmother. I called my grandmother Nanny, and so this is for her. Nanny. My grandmother always set an extra plate for an ancestor who had long gone. At the table, these ghosts had names, they belonging to a time before me. What a gentle shock it'd be to hear my nanny place the good silver and crystal aside, making the most of a mother who'd been a ghost to her. My nanny had many mothers, though, not blood, but thicker stuff, the kind who use their own spit to wipe your face and teach you how to drain the hardness out of your greens until they shun all wet and tender. My nanny would tend to the empty now full place at the table. She'd take the hand-painted china ripe with Franciscan apples, delicate foliage, out of her break front, unfold the placemat to press perfection, place my name in her good mouth, call me from down the hall to finish what she had started. Napkins, fork and knife, instruments of sustenance. What is a mother but one who sets the hardness of her days aside, washes it under the sink, boils it to a glow you might mistake for softness? What is a mother who fills you to the brim with the new water she's left cooling on the stove, fills you to the brim with what was, with what wasn't, but now what is? My nanny would cook a meal each Sunday of candied yams, string beans freshly plucked on the porch, steamed flounder, her offerings to those who struggled and failed and flailed to love her in this life. Maybe the next it'd be different. This next poem, Origins, comes from a manuscript that I've been working on for the past sort of year and a half on Sojourner Truth. Sojourner Truth is my namesake. I won't go too much into it, but just a few things you should know about Sojourner Truth. She was born a slave, and she was enslaved for the first 30 years of her life. And she was enslaved in the North in upstate New York. So it was really common for slaves in the North to take up knitting and making wool as a part of their sort of like labor. So often in her photographs, you'll see wool in her lap. So she kind of continued that activity even post-enslavement. And making like socks and clothes from wool became sort of like a symbol for the abolitionist movement, because often a lot of people would do that and send it to soldiers sort of like on the front lines. So there's sometimes that image is kind of misconstrued and seen as kind of this construction of this like hyper feminine self. But for Sojourner Truth, it was actually a part of her abolition practice and movement. So that's all I'll say. Origins, after Sojourner Truth. In the beginning, say there is an open mouth. Say the river and the prayer do the same work. Say it is the labor of longing. Say desire is wet and you touch yourself. Touch meaning in the beginning, Sojourner spun 100 pounds of wool. Touched the white fibers for so long, when she finished, she got up and left. Her master found her not too far, asked why she had run away. I did not run, I walked. I touched the deepest parts of me and said, mine. I said a prayer 361 times before this, in many different bodies, on the back of some river, ocean, lake, shore. Touch standing in for creation, the words that float from my mouth, not the boat that floated me here, but what I did with the water, how I drank it and it sustained me. All my ancestors, they covered in blood. All my ancestors, they show me their love. Elegance refusal, after Coco Chanel, Patricia Smith, and my cornrows. 1. Elegance like so much refusal. Like my cornrows so tight they should bleed red, but nah. Today I practice grace and swallow Tylenol without water and resist sleeping on the back of my head. You know what I become when my weave ends today, my hair 6 inches longer than yesterday, and that is refusal. The will to tend a garden out of my head today. I wrap a headscarf round my braids, and that is refusal. Like beauty is a thing to be preserved in silk. Enslaved women tied their hair up for centuries and lasted? How long will my hair last? How long should I keep it in? 2. Today, the black gap in between each braid is a street I drive through in the hood. Me and grandma on the way to the hair salon, speeding in her Lincoln town car, so elegant as we pass Mary's garden and the white folks outside the meth clinic on Fairmount, and the bodegas bursting with new language as Dominicans reach for Spanish words to greet black folk, and they, perhaps out of love and perhaps out of habit, grow Spanish tongues and speak the new names back, and the neighborhood becomes a kind of refusal, something to drive through until we reach Miss Cherry's beauty salon. 3. Miss Cherry spread my child neck across the swan white sink as she washed my hair, spread it so acute like, so fierce as a cut like. Black girls have memories of water as both grief and the split of the neck bone, and the desire to be clean, to leave the hair salon a wholly new thing. And elegance like, I got you so confused because I've been through 6 different hairstyles in the last 4 days. Elegance like, allow me to rebirth myself with the ease of several packs of Kanekalon, hot combs, black sizzle, black hands of a woman, black woman, be the only living thing who done reach for me. That perpetual gesture to refuse the world's almost reach. Then it's caving in. This one is entitled Isabella is Told to Prepare a Meal. Isabella's the name Sojourner Truth was named before, like while she was enslaved. It's the name that she inherited from her slave master. And she didn't rename herself until the middle of her life. And so this poem is sort of for honoring Isabella and all the work that Isabella had to do to sort of manifest Sojourner. Isabella is told to prepare a meal. Isabella with the freshly caught fish, the knife she uses to scale the body into a new body, the vertebrate silver back and the silt it came from. Palms of her hands turn to scab, salt, blood as they morph into the herring, and the fish looks at her with one good upturned eye, and Isabella looks right back and stares the river down. And she could have changed the water's course, her good, strong hand held over the fish's head. She ain't in no particular mood to be looked at. Her short strokes littering the ground with what was meant to keep a thing whole, untouched. The last scale flies towards the dirt earth from where she strikes the blade to the limbless creature's throat. Isabella begins the work of opening a hole beneath the tail end, where she slices the cold-blooded thing in half and pulls out the muddy entrails to empty the last bits of life, but where life is returned to a bucket with which she'll make another meal. What you thought you had a right to know and turn to waste, Isabella's swift hand chose to slice the head off clean and keep it. Blessing the boat after Lucille Clifton. Call the boat black, and that could be a beginning. Black is what will hold you. The ship, a bloody inheritance, but what you name it, a spell, a mouth, what your mama gave you, a mouth, another hole for seeing. Call the boat black, and that could be the dark womb between the legs, a wet place to undo all this ship work. Work a name out of the water from your mouth. Everything that approaches a river is searching for a way to live. Call the boat black, not because black the name they gave her, but because black is what black goes by. Black goes by like a ship at sea. Black goes by like ray of sunshine floating across mama's face. Black goes by like a season folding into another life. Call your mama by what she go by and ask her how to pray all the water back into you. Ghosts for Shemalore. California's first rain in months and two Black girls biking down the wet earth. Shemalore carries knuck if you buck on her tongue the whole ride. Says Black people like rap so much because it is release. Sometimes the beat falls from our Black mouths like a howl. The pink of our tongues blooming in a dark room where no one thought it would. And how we open a wound and make garden out of it. How we part the sea with our teeth where an ancestor might have jumped from a ship into. How we do it with language and the ocean salt stains our words white. Ghosts me this way, with our music keeping us closer than the way they packed us on ships, with my mouth perpetually open like a wet rose, songing a scream, with my hair plaited and greased down by grandma's hands, with the magnolia always in bloom like grandma's hands as she plucked cotton from the root in her youth, or mended a shirt, a wound on my leg, as she turned the steering wheel and drove aimlessly for hours. For all the time, women like her refused mobility. Grandma presses a foot to the gas, and a slave girl comes alive inside of her, trying to move, wanting to be so close to us. And Shemalore's voice is somewhere in that in-between, the lyric cutting itself in half to cut across time like a wet blade, and California turning two Black girls into water. Our shirts sticking to our backs, so close to us. We want to be so close to us. The history of the pussy. Verse from the Latin word vertere, to turn, as a plowman would a field. Poem, all them lines on the page look like a ripe Black field. Poem from the Greek word poen, to make, like a slave woman's right Black hand made a field today, cotton swelling from the ground, white and disease-like. And today I am dreaming up her body, on the phone with the health insurance company, in the waiting room, on my back at the gynecologist as he bends and looks up my gown, because memory is a hole to look into, because in 1845, a white man looked up into a Black hole, a Black woman's anatomy spread out like a nation, like the evening sky, and he shifted a slave woman's uterus out of place, without consent, without promising her no pain. Field, a thing grown for consumption, a white uterus swells back into place like honeysuckle. What was Black, an experiment, is now garden pulsing with snow. Sojourner Truth poses as the sable Venus for a photograph. 1. There are virtually no American paintings with Black female figures during the 19th century. Sojourner washes her face in the morning, meaning she holds herself in the water then caught her in its reflection, meaning that is a painting. Her hand, a soft voyage across the eyes, a mouth, the cheekbone. 2. In a pamphlet on good photo etiquette of the period, they emphasize having a clean face. If you are a professional, the photographer will prepare the sitter in advance, especially if they are of a dusky complexion. The photograph depends on the action of light, how to light a sable face, how to prepare for a clean shot. 3, Sojourner's photographer hesitates at first to hand over the copies of her negatives, says the world is the opposite of what it should be here, might confuse you for a white woman here. 4, here, as if locating the exact place in which light traveled and washed over Sojourner's face, and all her gods became white, and she didn't make a sound when they made her in their image. Isabella Starshine in clay. Call me mud water, call me stream, call me yellow birch, and you will not have called me out of my name. Call me from the things I come from, spruce, red cedar, hemlock, mountain oak, pine, The Lord prayers hot on Mama's tongue, balsam fir, hickory. I made it up with my hands deep inside a fish's throat. I made it up in the hole the knitting needle must pass through, each breath between the lash, each time they came to touch me and recoiled. Birth in the voice of Sojourner Truth. Gravity, that which pulls a body to the earth's blazing center. My beginning, that which was always a body being returned to the earth, to the plantation's wet will, to the spinning wheel. My beginning, that which was always a body being returned to the mule and the things it carried through the seasons, the plow, summer's humid rain, the sound a lash makes on the back. What I mean to say is pain in the earth's lush inheritance. My beginning was the wound of labor, a hand caught inside a machine, was watching blood and all the girl-like things drain themselves from me. In the beginning, I prayed in between the blue eye of a river so you could be born of all the right water. In the beginning, your eye floods with blues water, womb water. In the beginning, I return you to sight. I return you to good pain, good blood, good light. I return you to the world so your mother could carry you through like a season. The autobiography of Bitch Sojourner. Bitch Sojourner could have been from the back of a school bus or from the light lip gloss transmits from one side of the dewy face to the other. She could have come from the hot water pipes or the hole in the receptionist's throat where the word black fell through, or where Bitch Sojourner placed rosewater in its place where the word could not be uttered. She is all we up in this bitch. Then a room be a bitch, then a home, then the bluest thing that will hold you. If a room be a bitch, then the walls are stained white with salt water. Then it is the one place we have all been, inside a thing, growing into a name. Bitch Sojourner comes from women who did not get, you better work, bitch. They all said it in their own way before. Grandma poured water on the cotton so it would weigh more than was actually there. Bitch Sojourner is looking for blues work and moon work. She is the last place to let something grow. Where is she now? Anywhere wet. Not earth again, nor the place the spirits go, everywhere in between, which is any and every ocean, the place you hold a song or prayer, God's one blue eye, the space in between the legs, last place on your visage that is brushed by a tear before it falls off into the world. Bitch Sojourner may have sent the storm. Bitch Sojourner may have come from the flash of light between the slave girl's leg when the sun rose over the boat. Bitch Sojourner is a bitch like an uncomfortable place. Damn, I'm in this bitch. Like the last place they saw a slave girl on the ship's edge before she went to fetch her water. Bitch Sojourner may have rose in it. Thank you.
Sojourner, thank you so much. It is so exhilarating to hear those poems again. I forget if I told you, but I'm from Ulster County, and so that's the county that in which Sojourner Truth was born. And so I feel particularly lucky to get to encounter those poems. Thank you. That was wonderful.
Thank you.
Our next reader is Lupita Ide Tucker. Lupita writes and translates poetry in English and Spanish. She has a particular gift, it seems to me, for describing journeys, including migrations, in vivid and moving ways. Lupita is the author of a chapbook, Creek Lover. Her poems have appeared in Nashville Review, Columbia Journal, Raleigh Review, Women's Voices for Change, Yamasi, Rattle, and Pank. And she has new poems forthcoming in March from The Night Heron Barks, the McNeese Review, and Rattle. Lupita is a first-year MFA student in poetry at the prestigious program at the University of Florida, and she will be a staff scholar at the Breadloaf Translators Conference in June of 2021. She is currently translating 2 collections of poetry by Venezuelan poet Orietta D'Angelo. In 2020, she was a finalist for the Swanee Review Poetry Contest, the Lorraine Williams Poetry Prize, Frontier Poetry Chapbook Prize, and the Gloria Anzaldúa Poetry Prize. Just last week, she was named runner-up in the 2021 Chad Walsh Chapbook Prize from the Beloit Poetry Journal and was nominated for a Pushcart Prize from the Arkansas International. Lupita is the 2021 Unbound Emerging Poet Award winner, and we are so happy to have her here this evening. Welcome, Lupita.
Thank you so much, Gabe. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. And exhilarating is a very apt descriptor for the reading that we just experienced. I'm feeling very exhilarated by that. And thank you also for to the Unbound Book Festival for honoring me this way. And it's very encouraging to know that my work is being read, that it's making its way out into the world. And that really makes me feel seen as an artist, as a poet, and as a human being. So, and also thank you to everyone who's watching right now. I will be reading 9 poems tonight. And the first few will be from my as of yet unpublished chapbook manuscript. And then I'll read a couple of new poems as well. My first poem is a sonnet called Guaranda, and it has an epigraph. If he had split the sea for us and had not taken us through it on dry land, it would have been enough. Dayenu. It wasn't enough that we slogged pale across hoarse latitudes, bound burros west through muck and jungle, malaria the 11th plague, forded the Amazon, tambourine danced like Miriam, Omain and Omain. We thought Loha was Eden, an eternal spring of lush, fruited soil, but they found us. We could smell their burnt breath in the wind, fled further north. Cuenca, a river Jordan if we ever saw one, streets paved in Inca gold, then washed bloody, they found us. We covered our bowls, climbed higher, beyond El Páramo to Riobamba, but here they were waiting, tightening their racks, licking their lips of fire to devour us. We walked through the valley of death, dug our heels into this mountain, covered our tracks with switchbacks, prayed to Abba that the world would forget our names, sackcloth and ashes, Omain and Omain, counting 10,000 Shabbats. Here we've stayed. May our children's children never forget why we came. The next poem is called Sábado en Alausi, and I originally wrote it in Spanish, then I translated it into English, and I will read the Spanish version first, then the English. This poem is for Ecuador, and it's not very long too, so. Sábado en Alausi. Soy la mesa puesta y las velas. Somos el libro sagrado que nadie lee. Eres el puño en la puerta, la que hace desaparecer la comida. Soy la baraja de cartas, las palmas sobre el mantel. Somos los cajones escondidos por debajo de la mesa, el intercambio de miradas. Eres el cuchillo en la mesa, la que corta el fin de semana. Soy el aroma de tu plato preferido, la víctima de tu palillo. Somos el palo preferencial. Eres la sospecha, la espada en el pantalón. Soy la respuesta rechazada, la suplicación. Somos los naipes repartidos, los culpables de tu desdicha. ¿Y tú? 4 paredes apretándonos la garganta. La mesa volteada, la cuarentena, caída y limpia. Saturday in Alosi. I am the table set and the candles. We are the sacred book that nobody reads. You are the fist on the door, the one that makes the food disappear. I'm the deck of cards, palms on the tablecloth. We are the secret drawers under the table, the exchange of glances. You're the knife on the table, the one that slices the weekend. I am the scent of your favorite dish, victim of your toothpick. We are the chosen suit. You are the suspicion, the sword in the pants. I am the rejected response, the supplication. We are the cards dealt, the scapegoats of your misery. And you, 4 walls, squeezing our throats, the table overturned, the quarantine, winner takes all. When people say 1492, what often comes to mind is Christopher Columbus, but that date has deeper significance. That year, the Jewish people were expelled from Spain, or they could stay, but they would be forced to convert to Catholicism. But even converting to Catholicism didn't mean that you were safe. They could still imprison or torture new Christians, confiscate all of their property, destroy their livelihoods. Yet, in spite, 300 years of attempting to erase Jews from Spain, many families kept their Jewish faith secretly, while outwardly professing Catholicism. My family was one of those families. And those families or those people are known as crypto-Jews. My ancestors fled Spain in the 1500s and made it all the way to a remote region in the Andes Mountains in what is now known as Ecuador. And Riobamba, Guaranda, Alausi are all places in Ecuador where crypto-Jews tried to hide from the Inquisition. My next poem is also a sonnet, and it's called Ode to la Conquista. My mother is an ancient invitation to dream. The saliva left on the hand that was kissed, the perfume of the ocean, the maddening wind, the tightening winch on a torturous reach. My mother is something to bet the kingdom on, the illiterate one of noble lineage, sweat pooled between the scapula, between eyebrows. My mother is the blood puddled around the throne. My mother is one eye over the shoulder, a Sabbath prayer beneath the breath, the rot of brine between the boards, shrieks of secret spoil in island forests. My mother, the woman with gold in her veins, the thin air on the mountain, the hole in the earth, so deep. My grandmother, my abuelita, the one who kept Sabbath but who never told anyone, was an amazing person. She had the ability to make anything at all. She could do anything with her hands. She was a master craftsman, a visual artist, a textile artist, and she also taught herself to play several musical instruments. This next poem is called How to Ride a Train in the Andes. In a coastal sweatland shanty town, I vowed to clamber onto the corrugated steel roof of a train car, to throw my life up first like a knapsack, charcoal cleanse my nose, my lungs, my pores, be delivered, aching for 12 hours up a shifty seam of steel my abuelito laid, the one who carried his train on his back. Hold my breath, Stay low. Remember to not drink chicha on the roof with the local boys, not to lose my head or turn my back on the tunnel like Bisabuelo did. Hold tight until the train stops just past Devil's Nose, in a tiny Andes town, overlooked by wooden window balconies, steel-sliced cobblestone kingdom bearing a Cordillera crown. Here, I let my fingers stroke the velvet mountain's cloak, and from the furrows of the knitted fields, I see my abuelita come running, the one waiting for the whistle. Tired of air-kissing the cheek of fate, watch her smudge coal off her brow, watch her tuck family secrets down her blouse, purchase a ticket to another life. The first man who crosses my path, she vowed, con ese me largo. Alausi, 1941. I want to know what she saw that day on the train. Tallest man in a land of patuchos, and what coal-fired sentence picked up enough steam for her to agree to elope with him. Abuelito, when his name was Guillermo, was a scandalous choice, but she was in a hurry. Maybe she fell in love with his hands. Two bulldozers that chewed whole mountains to lay her a road. I can almost hear her heart pounding, each step faster until she could fly. Abuelita, when her name was Defilia, needed a man, form of heavy machinery to tear out the roots. Daughter of God pretending to be an orphan, she, a golden menorah wrapped in a blanket. She, a whispered psalm, recited from memory, folded like a white handkerchief in Guillermo's shirt pocket. My grandparents moved their family to the coastal town of Guayaquil, and that's where my mother grew up. And in 1984, my parents moved my family from the United States to Guayaquil. And we lived there for over a decade. And actually, my father lived there until his death in 2008. This next poem is called Self-Portrait con Naranja. Long days in Guayaquil, when there was nothing. And in the afternoons, nothing turned into more nothing. I begged my abuelita for a snack, until she put down her cuchara and reached for her sharpest knife. Choosing the juiciest looking orange from the basket on the floor, I watched her, kitchen towel on her lap, wearing one of the many dresses she drew and stitched for herself. Tongue between her teeth, she sliced a notch into the skin, just deep enough to leave the white pith intact, turning it inch by inch. It was a miracle how she could transform a thing, and carving steadily, an orange ribbon curled upon her lap, recomposing into a hollow sphere. As if the skin wasn't ready to let go what took so long to ripen inside, its body rotating between her crooked fingers. Nothing for me to do but watch. Maybe teach myself the trick to unraveling. Unravel bitterness like gauze. Unravel the girl I was from the girl I could be. The final cut released the heavy coil, landing useless in her lap, and plunging her knife into the top, she cut out a fragrant cone of juicy flesh, popped it whole into her mouth, and laid a new creation in my palm. The opening let me suck out all the juice. The soft body let me squeeze out every sweet drop. This next poem is called Gonzalez y Guerrero, which are my grandmother's last names. The Guerreros are the crypto-Jewish side of the family. Gonzalez y Guerrero. I come from a family tradition of choosing the outside, a truth that comforts me. Abuelita eloped with chance. Her whole life, she created costumes with her hands, so she fashioned a world outside their minds. Never saw her family again, small oligarchies of society, insistent on lockstep obedience, disowned. Gonzalez y Guerrero battle each other in my veins, a war I must win. Praying the stakes are less high. My antepasados pretended a Catholic faith, escaped across an ocean to the new world. Few of them survived. Handfuls of families, still keeping Torah in their hearts. Passed down, secreted, like Abuelita's platinum pendant, the jewel, Alexandrite, an enigma in fractured light. I come from a tradition of stubborn refusal to conform. At times it has served me. Stepping back, I'm angling for the long view, examining all the ways I've resisted assimilation, facets of revelation gleaming. I'm thinking of passing on. What of this inheritance will mark my children? Whose traditions will they keep? My next poem is called Ode to the Quinceañera Dress. Oh, frock of fantasy. Oh, princess dress before Disney princesses. Oh, first lover, who sheathed my friends' hips in lace, cupped their breasts with boned bodices, fairy tale silhouettes, strapless and nipped at the waist. You hid crinoline under their skirts, scratchy, to remind them that beauty, like love, hurts. I never loved you. In theory, I may have wanted you, but as I watched Elizabeth waltz and Maria Fernanda glide, deep down, I knew 15 was not my time. You spotlight, you pedestal, you spiral staircase, oh tool and twinkle, you tiered confection of cakery, too sweet for my sweet tooth, the one I inherited from Abuelita. I admit I had feelings, and I had Abuelita, her steam ripper and mighty singer fashion mate, who could have crafted any dress I desired from any fabulous fabric, but oh vestment, cloak of culture, oh sacrificial robe. Was your blushing taffeta too cursi, too contrived, too teen queen, or was I just too green in my gringa heart to step inside your pink satin folds, be zipped up and transformed into a real Latina? I wasn't one yet. While my girlfriends twirled in their skirts to Madonna and Debbie Gibson, oh, creamy chiffon centrifuge, you spun my purest self to the surface. You, Emerald City, you, Good Witch Glinda, I didn't need your ruby slippers to find my way home. I ran the gauntlet of quince parties in 1987, and though I always wanted to be a dancing queen, when my parents asked me if I wanted a party too, I refused, preferred to celebrate something earned. Oh, hegemonic hourglass, you galvanized my resolve to walk like an Egyptian, and for that, no regrets. Okay, this last poem is a newer poem. And before I read it, I just want to say thank you all for watching and listening. I would like to give a shout out to those people in my life who've shared in the ups and downs in this artistic journey. You know who you are, but in particular, I would like to shout out to Lori DeRozier, Diane Zinna, Maggie Smith, Ginger Murchison, Caroline Cabrera, Oh Miami, Breadloaf, everyone at the Palm Beach Poetry Festival, the Kentucky Women Writers Conference, and my professors and MFA cohort at the University of Florida. This next poem is called Ode to the Sugar Ants, and it's after Eleni Vakalo. The day we met was sticky and hot, and Abuelita left me a fresh carved orange in a napkin on her kitchen counter, mountain of sugar melting in the hollowed center. And when I returned from the bathroom, you, comrades and cousins, had descended upon my juicy treat. Repulsed, I grabbed the orange with 2 fingers, arm's length from my 12-year-old body, chucked it in the trash can, into which I stared, helpless before your industry. Oh, sugar ant, benign trooper, subterranean builder, antenna as long as your fairy bodies, frantic feet following a preordained path. You are religion without priests or prophets. I recall Abuelita's anger when she found the orange in the garbage. Son hormiguitas, no hacen nada, she chastised, and I learned not to leave food out for more than a minute. You, Legion, you, Conquistador, you, Simón Bolívar, conqueror and liberator, my grandmother's kitchen, your Gran Colombia. You made me feel like Atahualpa, how you licked his bones clean. Yes, you, nanometric Nimrod, many humid days I watched to learn your ways, tracking your movements on windowsills, single file up door jams, and found no beginning and no end to your mysterious paths. Master surveyor, geodesic coordinates embedded in your every footfall, in the Venn diagram of your world and mine, in the overlap, you are the truth that marches on. Decades later, in Florida, you scavenge my desk for crumbs, you pop out from beneath the Y and U on my laptop keyboard. Like Abuelita's words emerge from the crevices of my mind. Oh, sugar slurper, oh, minuscule usurper, oh, one-sided friendship. You march circles around my universe, and at night, it's your breath that freezes around the moon. Thank you.
Lupita, those were extraordinary, vibrant lyrical histories. Thank you so, so much. Thank you to both of our wonderful poets, and thanks to you all for being here this evening. Please remember that if you miss an Unbound event, or if you would like to watch this fantastic reading again, which I think I will, everything is available for viewing or reviewing on our Facebook page and on YouTube. If you haven't already, I hope you'll look over our upcoming schedule, which is packed full of astonishing literary talent. This Thursday evening, I hope you'll join us for a panel that I can't wait for, called Poetry and Prayer, featuring Jericho Brown, Molly McCulley Brown, and Alicia Jo Rabins, hosted by Reverend Molly Hausch Gordon, minister of the Unitarian Universalist Church here in Columbia, Missouri. Thank you all so much for coming. I hope you have a great evening.